Good morning. It is Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo to you. And it's also Give Local 757 Day here in Hampton Roads, an opportunity for you to support local nonprofit organizations here in the 757. It helps so much. You can scan the QR code that you see right over here on the screen. If you are watching live with us here on 13 News Now Plus from 9 to 9:30 here on the East Coast, we'll be giving you updates, but that QR code is going to work even beyond this. So if you're watching a rebroadcast or you're following us on YouTube, scan that QR code and you still have an opportunity to help some of the wonderful organizations here. We've already had our viewers donate a lot of money to help a bunch of, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations that need your help. So check that out. All right, let's check out what we're going to talk about on today's edition of the Weather Desk. You can see Virginia's still dealing with significant drought. Yesterday, we talked about some farms in the Richmond area that were really struggling. Now we're going to talk about some of the other impacts from the drought with livestock. They're feeling the hurt as well. So we'll talk about that. And then in North Carolina, we've got some new water restrictions. There is extreme drought over much of the Tar Heel State. I'll update you on that. But you might be wondering, do these water restrictions really work? That's another story we'll have for you here on the Weather Desk. We have a Verify from one of our sister stations where they take a look, and you might be surprised to find out what these water restrictions actually lead to, if they are really effective or not. So stay tuned for more on that. Wildfire updates from across the country. We've got 3 areas that we're really watching. There's numerous little wildfires across the country, but there's 3 that we're really watching. One in Arizona up into North Dakota, and then we've got another one, or 2 actually, in southeast Georgia that are rolling. We'll have updates on all of that for you. In addition, severe weather outlook for the country. There are some areas that could see some stronger tornadoes. I'll show you who is under the greatest threat for that. Would you believe some more wintry weather out west as well? Denver and areas north of Denver under a winter storm warning today. And I'll show you where the snow is falling, what they expect to see. And then we'll have an update on our significant rain potential here in the Mid-Atlantic. Some much needed, much anticipated rain still on track over the coming week. We'll talk about when we have our best opportunities for that. So a lot to go over. We're going to start off, though, by taking a look at the conditions that have been so dry across Hampton Roads. We're in moderate drought for the immediate metro area, but look at how much of the region is under severe drought. This is the eastern shore, the northern neck, the middle peninsula, even Williamsburg and James City County, parts of York County, Surrey, back into Sussex, Southampton there, the western part, all under severe drought. Severe drought for the Outer Banks down around Nags Head and Manio, those areas, and then south of the Albemarle Sound. You get out through Emporia, Roanoke Rapids, Rocky Mount, even out through South Boston along the North Carolina, Virginia state line there. We do have this extreme drought that kind of carves up back towards the mountains there and back across the western Piedmont. Now, with all of this going on, and look at that severe drought all the way up through D.C. and the mountains out through western parts of Virginia, you can bet that some folks are really struggling. In particular, farms in Virginia are struggling. After an April full of wild temperature swings, Mason Willett heard from farmers in Rockingham County about the challenges they're now facing this spring.
What happened this year has been very volatile for weather. We've had some very, very warm days, and then we suddenly have these cold snaps.
For Mary Godinez, the owner of Cross Keys Farms,
There's some here that are actually in full flower, not buried yet.
She says the rapid change in weather from day to night can be devastating.
It takes a tree or a plant about 3 weeks to prepare to freeze, and it takes it about 6 hours to break dormancy. So when we have a week that's 80 degrees and then it goes down to 25 that night, the plants just can't do anything about that.
Those sudden freezes have already taken a toll on her farm.
We lost a lot of the tree fruit. There's still juries out. We thought we'd lost absolutely everything.
But when it came to their blueberries, there was some unexpected good news.
I didn't want to see the bad news, and I finally broke down and came out a couple days ago and really looked. And happily, it doesn't look like we've had any damage on these at all.
A relief in a season filled with uncertainty, especially as other fruits remain at risk.
The raspberries, for the most part, have just finished flowering, and so if we really go below freezing this weekend, which is a possibility, it's a possibility those are going to freeze.
And she says it's not just their farm feeling the pressure.
We're hearing across the board, across the eastern seaboard, that we have a lot of customers that are up in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, Georgia, and all of them really got hit by this last freeze.
So just how up and down were temperatures here in Hampton Roads this April? Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandagis is here to break down the averages for the U.S.
April 2026 is in the books, and it was a wild ride. Literally, check out our range in high temperatures from a high of 50 on the 8th to 92 on the 16th. We were all over the place. Our average high temperature came out at 64.4 degrees, which ties last year for the third warmest on record at Norfolk International. Of course, lack of rainfall has been notable and impactful this month. Measurable rainfall occurring on only 5 days out of the 30 in April. We measured exactly 1 inch of rainfall last month, putting April 2026 into the top 10 driest at number 8, tied with 2010. Now, drought conditions continue to worsen as we now carry a deficit of over 4 inches, and our area is encircled by severe drought conditions. For 13 News Now, I'm Chief Meteorologist Tim Pandagis.
All right, so 4.28 inches was the deficit through the end of April. Guess what? We are now over 5 inches. It's 5.09. The deficit at Norfolk International for rainfall. So here we are now through the 5th of May, and we've fallen 5 inches below average. What about rainfall chances over the coming week? We are going to see much needed rain coming up on Thursday, and then again, really good chances Monday to Tuesday. We could see some isolated showers tomorrow. I think we will, and maybe a few light showers on Saturday. But the time periods that we could really make a dent in some of the drought conditions, Thursday and again next Monday into Tuesday. I'll have a lot more on all of that coming up. All right, coming up in a few minutes, we'll also have more on what you can expect to see in May for this upcoming month here. We've got to look at the averages and what we typically see. And new water restrictions taking effect in North Carolina. We'll have a look at drought conditions there and across the country. All right, so before the break, we were talking about Virginia being in the drought and how it's really impacting some of the different farms and the crazy temperature swings in April impacting that farm in Rockingham. It's also become a bigger issue even with feeding livestock, cattle, and some other animals there that farmers and ranchers are having to supply food for. They need the water as well in many locations. I want to turn our attention now down to North Carolina, because while much of Virginia is in severe drought, we're seeing more and more extreme drought and even some exceptional drought across parts of North Carolina. I mentioned south of Emporia around Roanoke Rapids down through Rocky Mount, these areas under extreme drought. You see that continues out through Raleigh along the northern tier all the way out into the western portions of North Carolina and Asheville. They're under extreme drought. We've got extreme drought over much of western North Carolina, but I wanted to draw your attention to Charlotte as they are under extreme to exceptional drought for these areas just east of Charlotte and around the Beltway there. They are kind of on that edge. So a lot of North Carolina really in bad shape in terms of the dry conditions. They desperately need rain here as well. Around Wilmington and areas back towards the southern Outer Banks, Hatteras down through Ocracoke, and those areas we do have severe drought there as well. But with all of the dry conditions down in North Carolina, this has been a big problem. And again, Charlotte experiencing its worst drought in nearly 20 years. Charlotte Water is now putting out new water restrictions in place to try to reduce water consumption. Miles Harris reports.
Brown patches are slowly spreading across lawns, and some trees are already shredding leaves early. A sign city arborist Lori Reed says could mean they're struggling to hold on to moisture.
We'll get those leaves dropping early, turning colors early. The trees might look droopier, especially newly planted trees.
Starting May 15th in Charlotte, outdoor watering will be limited. A move meant to conserve supply, but one that could put added stress on trees already struggling to survive the dry conditions.
If we don't have enough water, even when we have too much water, also can be a problem for the trees as well. It can trigger them to release some different chemicals that are kind of stress-induced chemicals, and that can attract some insects.
And it's not just trees. Lawns across the area are also taking a hit, with grass drying out and going dormant much earlier than usual.
Right now, with the plants not getting watered as much, and same with the lawns, a lot of spots in the grasses.
Winston Goldstein, the owner of Mr. Outdoor Living, says while we need rain, we shouldn't be wishing for too much at once.
No one prepared for the rain that we had last year. It rained, I think, like 4 or 5 days in a row, and there was places in Fort Mill, even around Charlotte, that got flooded, and we actually had too much rain. We didn't know what to do. And so now we're actually experiencing the opposite. So it's going to be unknown of what's going to happen, really, because we've never seen it before. Yeah.
You've probably heard of a few things you can do to cut down on your water usage, but do those small changes actually make a difference? Megan Bragg verifies.
The short answer, yes. These small changes can actually add up faster than you think. To verify, we looked at data from these sources: the EPA, Alliance for Water Efficiency, a nonprofit organization, and Energy Star. First, let's take a look at your shower time. According to the EPA, the average shower lasts about 8 minutes. The average shower head has a water flow of 2 gallons per minute. That means each shower uses 16 gallons of water. So for each minute you shave off your shower, you'll save 2 gallons of water. Another way to save, Energy Star says running a full dishwasher is actually better than washing your dishes by hand. The EPA says an Energy Star dishwasher can use as little as 3 gallons per load, while washing dishes by hand with running water can use up to 20 gallons or more. With newer dishwashers, you usually don't even need to rinse your dishes before putting them in. That can also save you some gallons. Other ways to save water: don't let water run while brushing your teeth, and cut back on how many loads of laundry you run per week. With your Verify, I'm Megan Bragg.
Drought conditions are helping fuel wildfires across the country. A look at the progress crews are making putting those flames out. We are so excited here at 13 News Now to help kind of promote and let people know about Give Local 757. This is the QR code that we have on the screen right here. It's a way you can help different nonprofit organizations get some much needed support. All of that money staying here with these smaller organizations, and your dollar goes a long way to help a lot of people. Let's take a quick update on where we are right now. $573,000, almost $600 there raised. I can tell you, since we signed on this morning at the start of 13 News Now Daybreak, folks have donated over $150,000 just over the last handful of hours. Thank you so much. If you have time, if you have the means, you scan that QR code and you can see the list. And there are dozens and dozens and dozens of different organizations that could really use your help. And you see the amount that they've already raised. So you can say, hey, this group sounds pretty interesting and they could really use some help. They might not have gotten that much yet. You might find some different organizations where your dollars make a huge impact. Right now, we're going to talk about how the dry conditions are contributing to elevated fire risks. And you can see there is an elevated fire risk up across parts of New England, including Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Jersey, back into Delaware, and we'll come to Virginia here in a moment. There's also some red flag warnings up across parts of New York State. So that elevated fire risk, a great concern to the north. For Hampton Roads, yes, we've got the elevated fire risk as well. This includes Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Suffolk, Isle of Wight, all of the peninsula, the middle peninsula, the northern neck, and these areas out to the west. So we need to be careful with cigarette butts, any matches. You can't just discard a match. You've got to make sure it's completely out. And again, people using heavy machinery or engine, maybe you've got a gas-powered engine, things like chainsaws or whatever, where the engine can get hot if it touches anything that is combustible. Dry grass, for instance, brush fire could spread rapidly with these conditions. So we want to make sure folks know about that. All right, we are going to focus on some of the different things going on around the country. There are wildfires, but some that we really want to focus on. And the first one is here west of Phoenix. So we're going to start there in Arizona. This is a look at the Hazen fire near Buckeye. So far, that fire has scorched nearly 1,000 acres. It's 0% contained. Fortunately, it's burning in a large, mostly vacant area. So the threat to homes is low right now. The cause of that fire is under investigation. We'll turn our attention now up to North Dakota and specifically around the Turtle Mountain area. And in this area, we have a series of fast-moving fires, again, tearing through parts of Turtle Mountains. Over the weekend, an estimated 2,000 acres burned, prompting a huge response from firefighters. Lindsay Miller reports from Dunseith.
More than 100 firefighters from more than a dozen crews came together Sunday to tackle two huge wildfires.
A minimum near 40 feet high and wind driven. It was just basically a wall of fire.
Dunseith Fire Chief Rick Gottbrit says of all the calls responded to over his career, this one ranks in the top 3 worst fires.
People trying to evacuate, and there was cops at the end of the road.
He says they were dispatched a little after 1 p.m. for the first fire.
That's where we believe the first one started from, was their burn barrel where they had burned their garbage.
A few hours later, the call for a second fire came in.
That was basically about a mile south of where the first one was at, and it started by a housing complex.
Gottbrit says the cause of the second fire is unknown. They had them contained around 8 p.m., but soon had to go back out.
When I walked out of the fire station, I could see that it was coming out of the foothills, and so I rounded up my crew, and we started getting all the county departments got dispatched again.
You can see how close the second fire got to these two homes. Crews fought to keep the flames away, as Gottbrit says residents had not been evacuated. There were no casualties, but a garage and a couple outdoor sheds were lost. Turtle Mountain tribal leadership and community members donated water and food for the effort.
All right, we're now going to turn our attention down to Georgia. 2 fires there that we're really keeping a close eye on. Firefighters have made some progress in putting these 2 massive wildfires out. First, we'll talk about the Pineland Road fire, which sparked in Clinch County nearly 2 weeks ago. That one burned more than 32,000 acres. It's now 44% contained. And then there's the Highway 82 fire in Brantley County. That one's burned more than 22,000 acres and is 75% contained. All right, we're looking live outside. We've already gone over what we experienced this April in Hampton Roads. But what about this upcoming month? Now that we're into May, what can we expect? We'll let you know coming up in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the Weather Desk. We're now 5 days into May. You might be wondering, how does this month typically shape up for Hampton Roads? Meteorologist Taylor Stephenson breaks down the averages for us.
May is that month where it really starts to feel like early summer here in Hampton Roads. Temperatures will trend warmer as we go through the month. The beginning of May features average highs near 74 degrees and morning lows in the mid-50s. By the end of the month, those numbers climb to the low 80s for highs and the mid-60s for lows. So you'll definitely notice the increase in warmth, especially in the afternoons. Now, May can bring some heat. The hottest temperature ever recorded during the month in Norfolk was 100 degrees, set back on May 31st, 1991. On the flip side, high temperatures have been as cool as 48 degrees, which happened in 1917. Rainfall is also something to watch. On average, we pick up about 3.78 inches of rain in May. That can come from passing showers or spring thunderstorms. In fact, the single wettest day in May dropped that same amount, 3.78 inches, back in 1888. Total daylight will increase too. We go from just over 13 and a half hours of daylight at the start of the month to 14 and a half by the end. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, so May is a month of transition as we start to really warm things up. We'll get into our local forecast here in just a moment. Wanted to update you on the winter storm warning that you can see, which includes Denver up through Cheyenne. This area bracing for up to 8 inches of snow. You can see north of Colorado Springs through Fort Collins, areas back out to the west. They've been in a snow drought out there, so some snow around Vail, Aspen, back towards Steamboat Springs. I'm sure that is welcome, but it's kind of interesting when we're talking about all this warmer weather and potential for severe weather to see a winter storm warning. That snow continues to fall out that way as we take a look across the central U.S., Kansas City dealing with some heavy rain, big storms from St. Louis on down to the south through Memphis, and that's where the severe weather threat is. There is the potential for tornadoes in this area later today. We're going to be watching for that. All right, our 7-day forecast for Hampton Roads. You can see the temperatures are going to be turning a little cooler. Significant rain on Thursday, and again, chance for showers Saturday, more rain into early next week. That's going to do it for this edition of the Weather Desk. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.